we're sober enough to see it start a race.
2.
It's a lot to ask of people.
I think I've been in I'll need to take my kids at some point, but I see them kind of.
We went to Carp Day.
When it gets there, they don't know what they're going to get themselves into. Yeah, so we'll have to figure out when that timing's right.
You need good seats.
Yeah.
You're taking that.
Even then, I can't see them sitting there for 3. I mean, they're so far away from sitting there for 3 hours, pushing cars, driving it over.
Good morning. It's 9 a.m.
But they need
The May 28th meeting of the Zionsville RDC is called to order. We'll start with consent items on the agenda. Are there any questions, comments, any suggested edits? Seeing none, are there any objections to consent of these items? Seeing none, these items are approved. We'll move next to the director's report. We have Corey joining us via Zoom. Any questions for Corey? I have a question, Corey, about the, going back to the item on Dairy Queen on that property. Do you have any estimates on what our share of the cost share is going to be for that project? Okay. Okay. And is it a 50-50 split straight down the middle or? Understood. Thank you. The last item on the list is probably the most important here. Becca, could I ask you to come forward? So this notification is the 200% threshold for each allocation area. If we are collecting revenues more than 200% over obligations, then there has to be some flow through to other tax units, correct?
That's right. But you look at your debt obligations, your operating
Yep.
expenses, and you take that all into consideration against your revenues that you're collecting.
And none of our areas did we have anything over 200%. Are we close in any of our?
No, and we'll take a look at that calculation before the letters go out. But historically, no, and I wouldn't expect that for this year as well.
Okay. Any questions for Becca while she's up here? Thank you so much. Thank you, Corey. We'll move next to old business. The only item of old business is the development agreement with the Wild Air. I see that Mr. Moffitt is in the audience here. Trying to remember where we left things. Maybe Commissioner Kintner, you want to take the lead on this?
Yeah, we had a follow-up meeting with the developer after our last meeting, was talking about timing of, potentially some of the land coming down sooner or later, and agreed to leave it as currently documented in the development agreement. So no changes were going to be made to the document.
Okay. Are there any further questions or comments from the commission? Anything you'd like to say, Mr. Moffitt? No? Okay. I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor of approval of the development agreement signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. We'll move next to new business, and we have a number of items here, the first of which requires that we open a public hearing. So that public hearing will be opened at 9:12 a.m. on May 28th. And that is on the confirmatory resolution for Holiday Farms Century project. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak? Yes, sir. If you wouldn't mind coming forward and stating your name.
Brad Gressel. Just want to confirm, this is the confirmatory for the Century.
That's
TIF,
correct.
right? Okay.
Could you spell your last name, please?
Yeah, Gressel. I was involved early on in the, alongside my neighborhood in Hidden Pines for the basically negotiation to include the extended pathway portion of this project. So that's, just for anyone listening, that's the frontage in front of their property. That's kind of required as part of this project. But what was great, and we were very happy with Century accommodating this, it was extending the pathway up to Opelousas all the way down to Willow to kind of connect in those pieces. So I would just say as a reminder that I know the PUD is not what you guys do, but the PUD was not supported without basically that pathway piece. And so that agreement, verbal agreement from Century, was very important. So I know myself, I've been asking to see a developer agreement since October. And I got a copy of it this morning, a little before 7:30 from the developer. I never got it from Corey. So it's a little frustrating having not been able to read through it too much, but I would say obviously the reason for developer agreement, the importance of it is so we avoid like what happened over at Holiday Farms, where there were a list of potential improvements that could occur. There was no commitment within that, and so with the lack of teeth, none of that ever materialized. So in looking at this agreement again quickly, the copy I have, the first thing that jumps out is the I think it's diagram C, which is the map. Does not correlate with what the agreement language states, which that it would be that location from Opelousas Crossing down to Willow Road. The map shows only from Opelousas to Hidden Pines, so that would need to be corrected to reflect that. I would also, again, I've only been able to look at this a little bit, but and I'll read some of my notes. If the required land for this path, I guess to go back, originally this was supposed to be just a $650,000 essentially cash amount that the developer would give off the top of the TIF to the town. It could be used for a path, I don't know. Now it's been revised to the developer has offered to construct this path. They'll have to request the funds from the town in order to do so. But the piece of that $650,000 doesn't include any land procurement, land acquisition. So if the required land, this is more of a question, if it can't be procured for the entire length, will the $650K still be dispersed? And the other question is, must all of the required land be procured for this whole path in order for them to move forward, or can they do the sections that they do get the land? Because, for example, Interactive Academy has given their verbal agreement that no acquisition would be needed. The pathway could be built across that property. So that's like a piece that's easy. Some of the others require some acquisition. And to me, I think the most important part that concerns me is essentially, okay, we have a developer agreement now, but if this doesn't play out and the developer can't reach an agreement for this path to be constructed, what happens? Super specifically, what happens? That amount, what I would like to see is that amount goes to the town, goes to like a fund that is dedicated only to, it's the $650,000, but it must be used to construct a pathway. It has to be that specific location. So the eastern side of Michigan Road from Opelousas to Willow, and that the funds can't be used for anything else or anywhere else. Just to reiterate kind of the Holiday Farm, say if that's not tied down, it's going to get gobbled up elsewhere. So just kind of want to reiterate that I'd like to see that included in there. Thank you.
Mr. Gressel, are you open to taking questions?
Sure. Yeah.
Any questions from the commission? Seems not. Thank you.
Yeah.
Is there anyone else who would like to provide testimony during the public hearing? Yeah, Mr. Price.
Good morning, Matt Price, representing Century's development team. First of all, I just want to thank Mr. Gressel. We've been good partners working with him on the trail project since last fall. And I'll take the real easy one first, which is I think we just need to substitute the picture of the trail. I think the last segment just got cut off that drawing, but yeah, we're all in agreement. It goes from Willow Road up to the southern end of Appaloosa Crossing. On the funding of it, the way I understand our agreement, which we've worked with counsel for the town on this, is that we would engage in a planning process together with the town, together secure the right-of-way rights. We have the fund available to use for the construction, and then if it's not constructed within the time frame set forth in the development agreement, then those funds would just become the town's. Now, I don't think the development agreement today says, that it must go into some restricted account. I think that's something for you all. We don't have a dog in that fight, so to speak. That's something the town needs to decide for itself, kind of how they would like to restrict those funds. I think certainly Century has no objection to that. However, the town would see fit with regard to that thing. And some other time, I'd be happy to talk with you about Holiday Farm too. I think there's still kind of a systemic kind of misunderstanding of that TIF, which is the list of projects is the town's list of potential projects, which is a wholly different thing than a development agreement between a developer and the town. So anyway, love to have a dialogue on that sometime in the future. But as far as the points Mr. Gressel made with regard to the development agreement involving Century, definitely can substitute that exhibit so that it shows that last segment that I think's been cut off. And then I think the document speaks for itself with regard to the timeline and the coordination with the town. So I think that really leaves the last item, which is how you guys may want to restrict the use of those funds if they're not expended on the trail within the time frame. So.
And I understand that we're kind of talking about the project agreement during the public hearing on the confirmatory resolution, so I don't want to get too far off base, but it's ripe. So my understanding is that any acquisition costs of right-of-way or land that the town incurs is reimbursable from this fund up to the cost cap, which is $650,000. You outline the process for kind of doing the planning work, and it's meant to align with whatever the state is going to do with 421. And there are some timeframes in here, but is this account held by the town or the commission?
It's held so it'll be held by the trustee under the trust indenture. So the town will ultimately have control over any disbursement from it. So it's not like it's a Century bank account. It'll be a town account under that indenture.
Okay, understood. Any further?
It's Old National.
Old National,
the trustee. Yeah.
Any further questions or comments? One last opportunity. Anybody from the public who would like to offer further comments? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing on the confirmatory resolution. The time is 9:22. I'll open the floor to any discussion on the confirmatory resolution, which is essentially expanding the Holiday Farms allocation area to include the outlots that are along 421 next to the Century project, and then creating a new allocation area for the Century project. We discussed this a number of months ago, but it's gone through the process and is back from council. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Next, we'll move to the TIF pledge resolution. And I guess I would ask somebody who helped draft it to come and walk us through. Yeah, hi Heather, good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Heather James with Ice Miller. So this is a pretty short and sweet pledge resolution, and it's the last action that we're requiring from the Redevelopment Commission for this financing. We are simply pledging 90% of the TIF that's generated from this new Century allocation area that you just created with that last confirmatory resolution to the repayment of the bonds. And so that's what this resolution accomplishes. We're pledging 90%, and then 10% will be maintained by the Redevelopment Commission in the allocation fund for any proper TIF purposes.
Would it be a proper TIF purpose to use those funds for construction of the path?
Certainly.
Is the 650,000 coming out of the 90% or the 10%?
So the 650,000 is a portion of the bond
So it's the
proceeds that
90.
we're setting aside, right? And then 90% of this TIF will be pledged to repay the bond purchaser. So it's 90%.
So it's embedded in that.
That's right.
Yeah.
And the 10% would be funds under the control of the RDC.
100%. Mhm.
Any other questions? I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion to approve the TIF pledge resolution signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Heather. Last is the Century Development Agreement or Project Agreement that was just discussed. I think we certainly want to substitute Exhibit C to include a more descriptive diagram of where the trail extension would be located. But I would open the floor to any other discussion. All right, I would entertain a motion.
Could I have a question
Yes.
first, though, on the comment that was brought up about acquisition of property along the way? I think you mentioned there would not be that issue with Interactive Academy, but there may be with others. Has that conversation already taken place about what the acquisition may require? No, okay.
To the question about dedicating funds, I mean, we kind of discussed that this assumes that there's a fund created that can be drawn from for construction costs and acquisition of land, that the town controls it. Is there any meaningful way for us within this agreement to ensure that those funds are dedicated? That's the intent of the agreement.
So under the trust indenture, there is a separate fund. So on the closing date, those dollars will be put into a separate fund that we're calling something like the Century Trail Fund or something of that nature. We can call it whatever you'd like. And then when the developer folks want to access those dollars, they need to submit a written request form to the bond trustee and outline exactly what they're looking to pay for, right? So we're looking to withdraw funds from the construction account for X project costs, or we're looking to withdraw funds from the trail account to fund these things, either directly to pay vendors or to reimburse themselves for whatever they've already expended. So yes, there will be clear paperwork that needs to be delivered to the trustee. The trustee and the redevelopment commission needs to sign off on that written request before those funds are dispersed.
So, yeah, I mean, that makes total sense that this is a developer back. So we would have those reimbursements brought before us and would decide then whether they qualify. Okay.
That's right.
Okay. The only other thing that I noticed is just a couple of typos under E, trail project. Number 2 has trial design instead of trail design, and then it mentions State Road 412 instead of State Road 421. It should be US 421. So I suppose the motion would be to make those, to approve the project agreement with the correction of the typos and the substitution of Exhibit C. So I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion to approve the development agreement with the aforementioned corrections signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Next, we have before us a taxpayer agreement related to Century also. And I understand that this is kind of a companion to the agreement that was just adopted. Are there any questions or comments? We probably should have acted on these as a consolidated group. If there are no comments or questions, I would entertain a motion on the taxpayer agreement.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of the motion to approve the taxpayer and consent to real property tax lien signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Okay. Next item on the agenda is the CDC has submitted to the RDC a grant request, and I would like to ask Commissioner Pierce to, as our designee to that commission or to the corporation to make the presentation, please.
Great, thank you very much. And I always like to add a little bit of flavor because for those who may be listening, that the Zionsville Community Development Commission, Corporation, excuse me, I learned the title before I state it. The intent of the organization is to really help identify investing within a TIF region to boost the economic development opportunities for the town. And we have before us a request that came in from the Zionsville Public House, of which Marcus White, the owner, is with us today, and he's been very patient in participating with the CDC through many conversations to develop an appropriate submission for consideration. So Mr. White is the owner of the Zionsville Public House on Zionsville Road, and specifically was looking at investments and support by grant to improve the property for the town and for the execution of his business. The original request was $135,000, and the CDC, through many conversations with Mr. White, narrowed this down to improvements that would include the exhaust hood, rooftop unit, sewer and gas trap changes and routing repairs, electrical upgrades with a new 400 amp panel, upgrading transformers, upgrading circuits, and exterior upgrades, including hardscape fencing, lighting, and brick services. So the total investment into the redevelopment of the facility is approximately $250,000. The CDC actually recommends that the amount to support this is $100,000 through a grant, and the work outlined will be completed due to approval timelines being extended. And I know that some of the representation from the CDC is also here for questions, as well as Mr. White.
Thank you. I do see Ms. Carpenter and Mr. White. If you wouldn't both mind coming forward and offering any comments that you would like to share.
Hi there, Erica Carpenter. I'm the president of the CDC. We want to extend our gratitude to Mr. White for sticking with us through some growing pains and changes to our board, to your board, and kind of some overall changes. I think traditionally the CDC has given grants for general improvements, and in talking with Mr. Ober and other commissioners, we wanted to really focus on things that would improve the long-term investment in the property, and Mr. White has certainly done that. We at the CDC have given COVID grants. This was all before my time, but COVID grants during that time to help boost businesses. And then we've done some other grants in this vein with Nicholson Orthodontics, with Francis and Park, that have been very successful. So we hope that you will consider Mr. White's application.
Thank you. Mr. White, any comments that you'd like to share?
No real comments. I'm happy to answer any questions anyone might have.
Any questions from the commission? Thank you. Mr. Krupp, I see that you're a new member of the CDC. Anything that you'd like to share?
Good morning, members of the commission. My name is Adam Krupp, newly appointed mayoral appointee for the ZCDC. I would just add that I've been to one meeting, and in that meeting we did focus on this application for this grant. And I would say that a significant amount of time was dedicated to back and forth related to improvements that would not go with Mr. White if he were to vacate the premises in the future, which as a new member I thought was very important. So these are all improvements that will be fixtures and stay with the property, future businesses, but also just the optics and visual of people passing by the property currently. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
That does raise one point of clarification in case it might help. I think Ms. Pierce mentioned the investment of $250. $250 is the investment that is attached to the building that I couldn't take with me. The 100 was, well, we came to the 100 figure by, for a couple different reasons. We backed out a couple of things that I think were perhaps questionable. The other was that historically the grants have been 40% of the project or $100,000, whichever is less. I wasn't aware of the whichever is less, or I wouldn't have made the original request for 130. I was calculating it on 40% of the permanent. The total investment in the overall project is over 500. So the 250 again is a figure that's attached to the building that anyone else that came in, if I fall down the stairs here, the next person that comes in benefits from that immediate occupancy of a full service restaurant.
As far as the grant, Mr. White, would you certainly be willing to share paid invoices that give exact actual expenses?
Yeah, of course. This work is, I mean, the only thing remaining is a small portion of the outdoor part that was just completed here in the last couple of weeks. If you've driven by the building, you'll notice the difference in the facade on the outdoor space. The rest of it is all attached. Now, the only caveat I'll say is, and we had many discussions about how the hardcore the MEP construction was done. When a contractor breaks that down, it's plumbing, and then it's electrical, and then so there are components of the plumbing category that are permanent, and components of the plumbing category that I would not consider permanent,
Okay.
and that would go through all the MEPs. But yeah, welcome to have anything I have down to cancel or down to clear checks. If
Got
you
it.
like. So,
I think the preference of the commission going forward on these types of grants is, as you all have alluded to, that making investments in properties rather than businesses that make the properties more marketable, that are not specific to a certain use case, and that are kind of reimbursed actual expenditures, not necessarily grants up front for work that's going to be happening in the future. So thank you for that. Any discussion, questions? I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion to approve the CDC grant signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
clarifying question on the mechanics then, should I start putting that paperwork together, invoices and everything to hand to the admin staff? Is that?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind talking to this gentleman, Mr. Zach, over here, and we'll coordinate ensuring. I think you're familiar because he kind of plays double duty with the CDC. All right, thank you. Yeah. Next item of business is the proposed bylaws of the RDC. We have a resolution and then a document attached. This kind of represents the work of the governance committee over the past number of months. I've been working with Corey and Commissioner Hage to get these drafted. These have been reviewed by John Oberlander, counsel for the town. It's also been reviewed by Miss Heather Harris, who's counsel for the town council, and represents a lot of eyeballs on this document. So I would open up the floor to any questions that you may have. State law allows RDCs to adopt bylaws, and we have been operating without for since the inception of the RDC, and so this would formalize our processes and help us go forward.
Just wanted to make one comment for the record. The architectural subcommittee is not reflected in these bylaws because there is conversations that are occurring related to the South Village Plan Use Development that will have its own architectural committee. So just for lack of, or to avoid any type of confusion, we have decided to not reflect that committee here in these bylaws. If there is the need for a separate committee related to other areas in the future, we can make that amendment. But just wanted to make that clear because, in the previous discussions and in the agenda today, we have reference to an architectural committee, but that will not be reflected in these bylaws.
Thank you. Any other questions? I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further conversation? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion to approve the RDC bylaws signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. The motion carries unanimously. Thank you. The last items of business would be reports from subcommittees. Commissioner Ezra is not here this morning. He's excused, but I wonder if you have a report from the Finance Committee?
So we met, the whole committee was in attendance. We reviewed the claims, we're comfortable with that, and then discussed the parking study proposals that we were tasked with reviewing. We've only received 2 proposals. The third vendor, we haven't received their proposal yet, so we're going to move that to our next meeting before we bring a recommendation to the full commission.
Okay. Any questions? Seeing none, we'll move forward to the Governance Subcommittee. The work of the Governance Committee was just approved as the bylaws. That's all that we've been working on. And then the architecture subcommittee in future meetings will be removed from the agenda as we are not creating that committee, as Commissioner Hage mentioned. Commissioner Pierce, an update from the CDC.
Really, as you could tell, our last meeting was all about the Zionsville Public House and the grant, so I think we're covered.
All right. Any other business before we adjourn? See none. We are adjourned at 9:42 a.m.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.